Welcome to the Lost Beat 6 show. We're glad you're here with us. I'm excited. We're continuing our deep dive into the exploration and the celebration of the PLaNETS community here in Los Angeles, or the greater Los Angeles area if you're me. Today we're going to be talking with Nathaniel Peterson and Nick Daue, who are the kind of the production heads, so the guys behind the props, behind the costumes, behind the all the backdrops, the everything, all the visuals. It's those guys. I'm super excited to share our conversation with them. But before we do that, I want to make sure, we do our due diligence to make sure you do all that stuff you're supposed to do. You like, you subscribe, you do, it's not hard. You click a button and you rate this thing, because that's kind of how, we're making everything for computers now. And computers like it when you rate things. So let's appease our CPU masters, and let's make sure everything's taken care of, so we don't have any AI overlords not making this thing happen. So anyway, please like, subscribe. Please check out everything we're doing at lostbeat6.com. Show notes, all that stuff. Yeah, I don't have too much to go into. I'm really excited. I'm really happy with the turnout that we've been getting so far, especially with the last week that we had with Adam Stillwell. The reception has been amazing. Everybody I've been talking to has been super sweet. We're going to have a lot more conversations about PLaNETS in the near future. We're going to be sprinkling in a few guests here and there to sort of keep it fresh. We want to make sure we get this is a recurring mini-series theme, and we got a lot of people to talk to, and we want to make sure that, we give everybody a voice, and everybody we want to hear from gets a chance to do that. Yeah, I think we might have a single coming out for the Psychedelic Space Beef Band, a new one coming out. I got to talk with the boys about that and make sure all the stars are aligned, and we're also working with a few more people for releases of theirs, so I will not disclose that yet. I'll do that in the near future. We might be also doing some extra stuff, maybe an additional podcast recording of the old school style, maybe. It won't be on Mondays, it'll be maybe on another day, but or we'll do something special or more exclusive. Who knows? We don't know. But anyway, I really want to appreciate everybody who's been downloading and subscribing to the show. It really means a lot that this is striking a chord with you. So thank you so much. So anyway, I'm going to stop talking because I want to get to the show. So anyway, here's Nathaniel and Nick from PLaNETS.
Should we all do a 3, 2, 1 clap so that
that's a good idea.
Can sync? Yeah, okay, cool.
We're recording on Zencastr now, so I'll just do it on the second one.
Wait, hold on though. This is the biggest question. Is it 3, 2, 1 clap or 3, 2, 1 clap? Like, do we on the clap?
Not sure. Let's do 3, 2, 1 clap.
Okay, I'm into that. That's good. I'm glad that we're this is going to be a great interview. We are communicating.
I'm looking forward to it. This has been yeah. I'll save it for the I'll save it for the other side of the
clap
there. Yeah.
Yeah, I've had to save a lot of things for the other side of the clap. Okay.
All right, 3, 2, 1.
All right.
That'll work.
Yeah. There was a delay, but I think that's just from the system, so it'll probably hopefully sync up decent.
It looks pretty good on my end. I'm seeing it nicely. Thank you both for indulging me on this discussion and ongoing series. I think I'm going to call it Making the Scene.
Ooh. So thanks for making the scene. I like it.
That.
Yeah.
Well, absolutely.
Yeah. Thanks for your interest.
Yeah.
You guys have been probably the one. I'm not that I'm giving anybody more attention, but I'm probably more fascinated with what I want to hear from you guys. Because mostly, I'm just I told Stilly this, that I am very, very fascinated about how organized everything appeared. I don't know if it actually was. But I mean, like, someone came up with the logo. Someone came up with the put this all to made this a visually engaging experience for a show. So I might just start from the beginning. How'd you guys end up at the Alhambra house?
Wow. We'd have to go very far back. I knew Stilly when we were children. We met in like the 5th grade in Montana. We grew up in a little town called Whitefish, Montana. So that's where I first met him, and we ran amok up there in the woods together as kids. And then I met Nick in college in Missoula, Montana, and we were roommates there.
We also toured. We took a theater show across the country and got into a lot of shenanigans, and then kind of went our separate ways. I came to L.A., and Nathaniel had various things going on in Montana and came down for a bit. But strangely enough, I met Stilly while down here when Nathaniel wasn't here. I guess you introduced me, but then like we got to know each other down here. And then it kind of all happened where we all ended up back in L.A., and that's sort of when PLaNETS became PLaNETS, I guess. And I'll let Nathaniel tell the rest of that story because he actually lived in the house and, knows that side.
I mean, there's a twisty-turny series of events, but Adam Stillwell and I were in Montana shooting our very, very first movie. And that's where we met Adam Cotton. And then when it was time to take the movie and bring it to Los Angeles to try to sell it, Cotton also was interested in coming to Los Angeles and making music with Adam, and so we all came together.
Is this the Triangle?
No, this is actually pre-Triangle, but I'm never going to tell you the name of the movie.
Oh, really? Yeah. I thought this was a tell-all.
Well, mostly because the name of it has changed so many times, but
right. It's known in other countries by even other names that we have no idea how that happened.
But also, mostlier than that is that that was back in the day when I thought I was going to be a movie star still, and you can really tell by my performance in that film that I had delusions of grandeur. So, yeah. And
the piercings as well to prove it.
Yeah. Oh, man. Adam and there's a funny story that comes into play before the Alhambra house, and that involves the Adams, Adam Cotton and Adam Stillwell. They were playing music together, and they were doing a show. I believe it was like a Good Friday or some kind of Mardi Gras-ish show at a bar in Montana called the Great Northern. And there was a costume contest that night. And so we kind of cooked up this idea that what PLaNETS needed was a robot. And so we were living off of like day-old microwave burritos from the deli at the local grocery store. So we scraped up as much money as we could, and I built a robot costume and kind of danced around as part of the show, and they were making music, and I ended up winning the costume contest, which was good because a couple days later is when we moved to Los Angeles. And I won the costume contest and made $100. So that was the $100 I had in my pocket when I came to LA.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
That's nice. Yeah, I'm trying to create a myth about the funding of Lost Beat 6, this program here, that all the capital is raised on gambling funds.
Oh, nice.
So off of a sports book.
Yeah, anything good starts, built on money that's stained with blood,
Yeah, totally.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, that's how all good republics form and everything, so we've got a solid foundation there. But yeah, so
I'm a racketeering guy myself. Actually, I don't even know what racketeering is, to be honest.
I think it's just basically gangstering.
Oh, yeah. Like when they can't get you on what you actually did, they get you on racketeering. You know what I mean?
Oh, like that's how we got those burritos. Is we walk in there in a gym, in our gym suits, and be like, "Yeah, give us all them burritos. Otherwise, you're not gonna get the protection."
Exactly. I think that's exactly it.
Yeah. I think
Nailed it.
I think they just felt bad for us, so they just sold us the burritos for $1. But
Probably.
yeah.
We've driven a few things on pity, but we're not above pity. Whatever gets the show on the fucking stage is what we do. So, but yeah, back to your question, the formation of the house. I mean, it was originally Cotton was there with other roommates, right, Nathaniel?
Actually, I lived in that house before that, and then he moved in, and then I moved out. But he managed to hold on to it. But that's kind of convoluted. So
Yeah,
you could do a star wipe during this section.
It's not the most particularly interesting phase of it. Once everyone had landed there, though, I think is where the magic really started to happen. At least from me I've always lived adjacent. I've been band house adjacent for like 10 years now. But it's always been a place where creative things are happening, interesting things are going on, and yes tends to be the word that is like the deciding word for things. And people really loved it. Like the reason that PLaNETS became such a massive machine was people kind of got an opportunity to get their freak on, or express themselves, or do something interesting that is different from what here in Los Angeles you have to come with a resume and a work experience to do. And we were just like, fucking have a beer and do it, and we'll see if it's cool, and if it is, then let's go put it on a stage somewhere. Like that was kind of the attitude it felt like. And I think that was the progenitor to a lot of the interesting things that sort of started to fill out not just PLaNETS, but the general community. Because PLaNETS kind of ended up being such more than just the band itself. There were many bands, you know what I mean? And while it wasn't like we directly played with them, when you're working a live scene, like it is a community, and you rely on that for gigs, and they rely on you and for getting a new audience and all of that. And that community just really loved having a place that felt kind of like their own, like when you come in, you're not a stranger, and it's like, oh, I don't know if I can put my beer down on this fucking coffee table. It's like, no, there's already 3 beers spilled on that coffee table, so you're good. Yeah,
I think that's one of the things that we found too, is like Nick was saying, all the other bands, that it wasn't just PLaNETS. There were so many other bands, the Janks, Mars and the Massacre, Mod Pods, all these bands that, when you live in Los Angeles, I think the city is kind of built on cool. And a lot of the music scene is built on cool. Mm-hmm. But sometimes that coolness gets a little cold. And I think that what we found was it's a hell of a lot cooler if we're allowed to feel weird. And I think that as we continue to do shows and build a community up, there are so many artists and people in this town that need a chance to be weird and forget the cool. And the great thing that happens by proxy is that it becomes cool again because nobody cares. Right. And they're just getting to be weird and have a good time and create a vibe and create a space where people feel the freedom to just get a little freaky.
It is, and I think that's one of the things that draws me to PLaNETS, the scene, as well as the band, is that was that the Los Angeles music scene is such it's almost a microcosm of the internet, sort of. The negative side of the democratization of the internet, where there's everybody's sort of clamoring. It's sort of a white noise, and then all the legendary venues have a really kind of have these shady promotion companies, and then you have to kind of build on what you have, and then I don't know. It's I guess that's the part that really kind of draws me in, and this group of people were able to resonate so well that I've never seen. I just like today I was watching the Dark City stream from Halloween, just in preparation for this, and I've never seen Silver Lake Lounge that packed ever. Like And it doesn't, even that place is a kind of it's just like even in the satellite, it was usually a pretty hip place anyway. But and the Troubadour is the Troubadour, of course. But
yeah,
I'm not sure if anybody's seen anything quite like that at the Troubadour. You know what I mean?
I hope not. That was an honor. I think we did 2 different shows there, and that space is wild. So to think of who's been there and how hallowed those halls are, it was pretty surreal to do those shows there. But I appreciate that very much. Like I hope that no one ever saw anything like that, in spite of the fact of the amazing things that have happened there. That's quite the compliment.
Well, you're welcome. But the I think part of that is people that put on this type of show usually have a bigger space to do it in. I mean, I was the first time I ever went. I've only been in the Troubadour once, and that was to deliver a mixing console. And it's incredibly it's shocking how small it is.
Well, I think that's a testament to the fact that a lot of the people that were involved in PLaNETS in particular came from a theater background.
Yeah. And
as you're coming up in theater, you learn very quickly that you have to be incredibly resourceful with resources and space, because it's out of necessity, So being able to cram that much into a 12-foot by 10-foot space is kind of the name of the game in the theater world,
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, and we'd carved that show down. We did bars where there was like just enough space for the drums and Cotton and Stilly to stand in front of them sometimes, and having to do that, and then just going in there and going, we're going to do the show. Well, we'll figure it out. And definitely, the theater aspect, kind of the show must go on, comes into play there. And was it the best show? Who knows? But it happened. There were witch ghosts and all of the other aspects. We would slap it together and figure out how to make it work in the given space. I mean, the Troubadour was definitely an interesting stage space to work with, and we put a lot into those 2 shows. There was a lot of stuff going on, a lot of people to get up there, but we made it happen, and you just kind of have to get creative. And honestly, those are kind of, looking back, the more fun shows, where it's like, 20 people like sweating their faces off, crammed into a tiny hallway, waiting to go on stage. Is the moments you reflect the warmest on, I think.
Well, and the coolest thing too about all of that is, PLaNETS, everyone that was involved with that creating those shows were members of the band. It wasn't just a bass player and a guitar player and a singer and a drummer. We had incredibly talented people creating original choreography, creating shadow puppet shows, creating costumes, and we really did. There were about a core 12 of us that we would meet every Sunday and create these shows together, and it was like kind of like a polyphonic spree kind of situation where there were a bunch of us that were very involved and very, very committed to making these shows happen. And that was unique, I think, for a lot of people to see, like, oh, what do? You're in a band? What instrument do you play? And I'm like, oh, I play the robot. Or I play the witch ghost, or I play the shadow puppets, and all of those people, we are, and still to this day, very much a family. And hopefully kind of from the outside, it looks like a creepy, culty kind of flippy dippy kind of family.
I mean, I'm impressed.
I'm impressed we still talk to each other. We do, though. We're all still, in it together. And
it's always great seeing everybody when we get the chance. I mean, obviously this last year's not been a lot of that, but I would definitely second that sentiment. There was so much work happening just all the time, where it was, and that is the thing at the band house. It's like, yeah, there are rehearsals, and music rehearsals and things, but there are dance rehearsals. There's me and Nathaniel in the backyard constructing platforms and all of the different devices and tricks and things, and he's also building sort of all of the fonts and the imagery, and it was a full-on production house.
Some of my most favorite days of my life were days where we had a couple days till a big show, like a troubadour show or a satellite show, and everyone in the band was at the house, mobilized, working on something, putting together a costume, painting something, working out a dance routine. Like, those are
printing
some of my
shirts, like coming up with the merch. Like there were a lot of elements happening all at once, and it was fantastic.
There was a lot of hard work being done by a lot of people to make all that happen.
Did you design the logo?
I did not. I kind of came into the PLaNETS picture a little after that. I believe the story of the symbol is that it was I think Adam Cotton kind of came up with it. Stilly encouraged it, and then Bryce.
Yeah, was it Bryce? I think it was
refined
Bryce.
it. Okay. Yeah, and then I came into the picture and threw it on posters and stuff.
Nice. Okay.
We kind of took it and put it into like everything. Started to incorporate it.
That sticks.
And Nathaniel and I built the giant symbol that ended up being hung, and rebuilt it because it would just get destroyed. Like, we would pack that show up into a single, just a Chevy Astro. It's like a passenger van from the late 90s. And that symbol would have to slide in the like like an inch opening at the top, and sit on top of everything else so it would get jacked up. But that was great, because then we got to rebuild it and reimagine everything,
Right.
Nick and I would be very good guests on a podcast about how to fit a billion things into one van. Like, I know that's kind of a niche. That'd be like a very niche podcast community, but we would
the roadie podcast we would nail. We would kill that podcast.
I mean, the last touring that I've been on has just been in minivans lately, so I'd be interested in that for sure.
There's a very beautiful and delicate art to packing up a band.
Yes, and packing the actual band itself into the vehicle without them killing each other and getting them to the show.
Yeah,
once the show's going, everybody's in love. That 2 hours before, holy shit.
What I should say is it's a very nuanced thing to pack a van at 2:30 in the morning after everyone's had a very, very good time.
Yes, that's even
that's in those cases I've always been on the working side of those things, being an engineer, but it's if you're already kind of in the zone having a good time, it's hard to kind of like wind that down and pick things up for sure. That's all the build up to the shows, with the creating and this seems like that sounds like a wonderful, like a workshop. Of people working on stuff.
Yeah, it was like Santa's little elves making evil.
Because it seems like a very, very group collective of creative ideas. Is there anybody kind of overseeing the whole thing and checking off this, I like this, no, I don't like this? Or was there any sort of, I'm not trying to ask if there's any sort of tension between ideas that worked and ideas that didn't fly or anything like that, but was there, because I can always see the larger the group, the more the possibility for like inner politicking to create some sort of,
Yeah,
tension.
I mean, I think in that regard, like, Stilly would refer to it as filters. Like, we'd all kind of be the heads of little mini departments, and you'd run it kind of through the filter of the person who was facilitating it happening. So, for instance, Adam would kind of conceptualize the show and then hand that concept off to Nick and I, and we'd build things for that particular show. And then Natasha would choreograph dance pieces for that particular show, and Alan would make shadow puppets, and they, so there was sort of a, here's the concept, go run, and then let's check in every once in a while through the filter and see what we're coming up with and if it's indeed fitting the overall aesthetic. And it was a pretty decent system.
Okay, yeah, because it seems, and it was hitting me earlier as well when I was thinking about why this worked with so many people, and it had that kind of, you mentioned theater, and I also know you guys are filmmakers too, so I can see that kind of, I could see this working with an actual like group of musicians, solely musicians, not working as well just because of the potential collaborative it's the
structure.
Well,
the structure, yeah.
Yeah, it took a little while to build up to that, but I think, we did the Dark Woods shows for so long that we kind of developed for lack of a better term, like a aesthetic shorthand, because the Dark Woods was more of like a place where ideas came. It was sort of like a muse that we would pull ideas from. So that world of the Dark Woods was very much a touchstone for everyone. And after you've been existing and creating from that space, you do sort of kind of build up just a basic understanding of what works in that world and what doesn't. And so the collaboration in that aspect became easier and easier as we went, because everyone was living in the Dark Woods together and creating from there.
Okay.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's interesting, and we for a certain amount we would workshop some of them. Like we had at the sort of high points of shows where we were doing upwards of 3-4 shows a week. We would be workshopping certain elements in a show. So that was part of the exciting thing for the audience too, because anytime you showed up to a PLaNETS show, you may be hearing the same set of songs with a couple of different songs, added in, but you didn't know what show you were going to get because it could have changed. We were working on new things. We'd be refining things. We'd be changing things around. And that was a kind of a good process, I think, in terms of getting to actually test things out in front of a real audience and give somebody a genuine, fresh, new experience. And I think that overall worked as well. I'm not going to say that there weren't people who had frustrations along the way. And honestly, there are people who came in and didn't like how we wanted to run things and had ideas about how we should, be organized, and, we should have the kind of this thing you have on a set, where it's, this very clear delineation of power, as it were. And it just, that just wasn't how we did things.
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, I think, Adam kind of was Adam and Cotton were probably, or Stilly and Cotton were kind of the backstop ultimately for things, but generally, I think that things were done with everyone's approval, whether complicit or implicit, and that's kind of how it worked. And Nathaniel and I would work with the practical day-to-day stuff. Natasha was very much dealing with the choreography, and it's
Natasha and Mel,
great.
Yep.
Yeah, Natasha, Mel, and Alan, and Bryce, and all those guys. That's a world that we we just didn't stick our noses in, and if you're able to do that, I think that the system works. You know what I mean? Like, they're certainly not going to come tell me how to rewire like a fluorescent filament bulb to make it look like a campfire, and I'm not going to tell them how to twerk properly at the end of the stage, or put together this move with that move. It's
Does somebody have a cricket?
That's gotta be me. I'm in the like ante room of the house. I am so sorry. I'm wondering if
I like it, man.
I can dig it.
Okay, I mean, if it's not gonna jack things up, there are crickets. Definitely are PLaNETS crickets here, because they're like 20 dBs above any other cricket you'll find anywhere else. They're fucking rock and roll crickets. The crickets will throw everybody off. That's you start getting the crickets, it starts getting in your head. But that's part of the dark woods. That soundscape, that whole idea. Not my creation, but very much as a participant. Something you could get into. Just granted, I am from Montana, but the idea of being in the dark woods, is such a cornucopia of feelings, thoughts, emotions, and things to present, And I personally am not a particularly huge musician. I'm a classically trained actor, but I thought that my musical career ended in 8th grade band. So that was a surprise for me to find myself in the middle of all of it, and encouraged and uplifted by everybody. And just the style in which everything was done was very much something that I could get behind and see, okay, let's take this concept, the Dark Woods, in the album, and there's things I can do, and I can jam on that, and build from. And I think that everybody, listening kind of felt the same way. It's it's an easily accessible platform, and the Dark City is a little bit different, but a little more punk rock. But PLaNETS at its core is so much more than just the music. I think for a lot of people, including me, the concepts, the sort of world building that happens there. And we see it across the board in all kinds of genres now. A video game today is not, that's a whole fucking world that you're going into that somebody built with a concept and an idea. And, these massive epic films. And look, Star Wars. Star Wars is this entire universe built around some simple concepts developed into this whole complicated thing, and it's open, and children continue to be drawn to it because it is this sort of thing that has these sort of catch points.
It's the sandbox, as they call it.
Yeah, it's an open sandbox, but there's these commonalities and catch points that people can reach to and say, I get that, I dig that, and not to say that we're the next fucking Star Wars, but at all. But it's that for me was part of the thing that kept me, because as you mentioned, we do film, and that was kind of my initial entryway with all this stuff. But it's the thing that kept me coming back and showing up and putting in 20 fucking hours a day was, that yes, this is a cool story to tell too, and it's absolutely worth my time. And it should be done, so let's do it.
Yeah, and it's funny, kind of this, when I listen, I'm listening to myself talk about it in retrospect, and dissecting it and analyzing it, and it kind of makes me feel like I sound a little bit pretentious about it, because one of the other factors is it was a really damn good time, and all that work was worth it when all those disparate elements came together for a show, and you had all the people there, and you were making music with other bands and your friends, and just having it was a lot of work to just get together and have a really, really awesome, fun rock and roll time.
To give people a really good time.
Yeah.
People had such a good fucking time. The amount of people who were in the back of the room, I don't like this. This is ruining my night. There were some, but there were very few. And the amount of people overwhelmingly who just would come and tell us how amazing a time they had.
Well, now,
that's a really great fucking feeling to have.
Yeah. And, our thing too was hey, if we have a good time, then chances are they're going to be having a good time. If they see how much fun we're having, they're not going to want to be left out of that. And they'll
Which is, we've gone to a couple of shows in some hipster havens, and this is granted 5-6 years ago, so I don't want to offend anybody, but in, some hipster havens in LA where it's everyone in the audience has their arms crossed, and they're kind of nodding,
strokers.
But looking over their nose, at the stage going, I don't know if this is my thing or not, and by the end of the show, I don't know if I'm going to spoil it, but when the paper goes and we're literally tying the audience together with bright colored string and fucking robots are dancing and the girls in the coyote outfits are out there jumping around with them and like people are dancing and having a good time. You're like, yes, we got you. Like you had a good time. You got out of whatever that is that you're doing for a little bit, came over here, had a good time. You can go back to that. That's fine. But, you know, we got you in for a little bit. You saw what it's like over here. Cool.
Yeah, chances are you spend an hour in traffic just getting there. You might as well shake your ass when you finally show up.
Yeah.
I think that might be what may have, I wouldn't say broke me, but I think, because I consider I would never consider myself a hipster. But I do consider myself a little bit more of a beard stroker where I'll just sit. And I have a tendency to, when I go to a show, I'm a live sound guy. Usually I'm in the back trying to listen to the broad mix. But I'll listen, oftentimes if I'm not doing anything like that, I'm sitting on the side watching like audience band interact. And only a couple shows have really done that that I've been to.
Well, shit.
And one of them is like the Neutral Milk Hotel when they were touring again a few years ago. Like that was something like that. That's one of those music meets like those connections you get.
Yeah, yeah. It's cool. I mean, that was the thing. Like there was so much going on. There was a little something for everyone to enjoy. You know, like if maybe you're not into maybe the dancing stuff freaks you out, or you feel like the overproduced theatricality of it all was a little much for you. Like some people would be like, oh man, but they sound pretty awesome. You know, there's or I hope, but like, I don't know, I'm rambling on this one, but yeah.
It's something, and I talked to Stilly about it last time. One of the first great record I ever heard was Peter Gabriel's Secret World Live, which is like the 93 tour. Mm-hmm. And that was one of the first where he kind of went back to the Genesis kind of Lamb Lies Down on Broadway theater stuff. And that's always been it kind of was imprinted that a show could always be musically speaking, but also just theatrically speaking could be multi-dimensional.
Oh yeah. I mean, look at Stop Making Sense, one of the greatest, concert films of all time. Like there's a lot more going on there than just a bunch of cool dudes and dudettes playing their guitars. There's a whole thing going on with that show, and it's one of the things that makes it so great.
And also that not only that is you guys managed to pack it in within like 45 minutes to an hour set. That's a lot of energy for you know what I mean? Like those are besides the satellite residency, which you guys, I'm assuming the band had control of who they had for each week.
Yeah.
But that wasn't always the case. So you're always, in between, if you're playing the 11 o'clock, 10 o'clock set in between like a 9 o'clock, 12 o'clock, whatever it might be, that's an entire experience that's packed into a single set on a bill,
Yeah.
So that's I mean, imagine, did you get most of the time? Was there a good vibe between? And this is assuming you guys didn't know the bands that were booked with you on that night. Was there usually a good vibe between that, or was any like you stole my show sort of thing?
Oh, I never ran into anything even close to like that.
Never ever.
The only thing we really suck to follow because we're so messy.
We make a mess.
Like I always felt
that
so
stage up.
terrible. I felt so terrible for the bands that would have to play after us because we literally just covered the place in an inch of trash at the end of every show we did. And then, imagine trying to like hit your guitar pedal when pieces of paper and confetti are still falling out of the rafters. Like I always felt a little bad for any band that would have to go on after us, not just because of the energy expenditure, but because it was just a mess after we got done.
Yeah.
But yeah, I never heard of anybody who was like, upset about the energy level of our performance or anything like that. Everybody just, and generally I think you'll find, maybe we were lucky, but generally you'll find, I think once you're in that kind of community struggling to get by here in LA, it's like, it's all pretty fucking positive between people, like we're not the enemies of each other at all. Right. Like one band getting big doesn't it doesn't affect us, you know, and so it doesn't ever really feel like it's like, you know, oh, fuck them, you know, they stole our show. It's just not, my experience in it has never been to anything like that. And maybe that's thankful to Stilly and Cotton not ever, you know, wanting for us to play with bands that do have that attitude.
Right.
But
yeah.
Generally it was just all super positive. I mean, we're all hoping for a good show, and a good show is everybody on the bill, you know.
True. Are there any, based on the way you were building the show, and like on the production level, was there any cues that you took from, it's sort of a minor faux pas to say what's your influences for me and some friends of mine. But what was there any like? I could the shadow puppets.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it kind of had that sort of Javanese style, you know. What do they call it? Gamelan thing going on with that, you know. But was there any? Was there any sort of
like influences in that regard?
Yeah,
like
in terms of the art design there, I would definitely refer you to Bryce and Alan if you talk to those guys, because they kind of were the ones that developed that whole side of it.
Okay.
The shadow puppets and kind of that art aesthetic and all of that, and they very well may answer to that. Like, I would say for us, yeah, we definitely had influences, you know, but I think Nathaniel and I are just mostly rode on the body of work. I don't mean to speak for you, bud, but just the body of work that we're always taking in and seeing and adapting and doing, you know. We find something cool and we're like, yeah, what if we twisted it this way and did that with it? Okay, cool. And, you know, make that into something. You know, those days are still a bit hazy on me, but so I'm trying to think back to like a specific reference to something that I built. But I know like throughout, like we very much, we loved influences from other people who are making stuff and tried to adapt things and, you know, from history, Lovecraft, you know, was a huge guy for all of us amongst many other writers, and Isaac Asimov is a huge one for me, you know, and trying to get to some of the next stage stuff. And yeah, I don't know, Nathaniel, you have something to stop my ramblings with?
Yeah, no, I mean, the cool thing too is there were so many people in the band, and everyone as an artistic individual kind of comes to the table with their own influences and their own aesthetics that they appreciate. And so what we were able to do is kind of throw it all in a big witch's cauldron and stir it around and see what kind of weird smoke puffed up after we did that, or what kind of weird magic spell we could weave with all of that, you know, all of those different ingredients and components.
Yeah.
I do have an inside baseball question. It's more regarding like actually dealing sort of, let's make it a two-parter. One would be like your favorite venue to work with, and then the idea of actually how working with the local crew just to put these shows on, because I'm assuming that, you know, you probably had to be your load-in time was not 15 minutes before the set, because we mentioned earlier about theater being especially kind of more smaller off-Broadway style theaters, very adaptable to trying to make things work with per being very flexible per venue.
Yeah, we were actually given a tremendous gift, which was a monthly residency at Casey's downtown.
Oh, yes.
And we would do, what was it, the first Saturday of every month, Nick?
Yeah, originally. The days moved.
Yeah.
We jumped around to a couple of different days, but I think originally we were Saturdays, which is pretty cool.
And that venue let us get away with murder. Not literal murder, except for that one murder, but they were incredibly gracious to host us every month. And that venue, you know, if you talk favorites, I think that was such a great, not only was it sort of like a monthly meeting, it was also a place to incubate ideas for other venues and try things out and be experimental and change things. And because we know that the crowd would come, and they were there last month, so we would need to come up with, a reason for them to come back and not just put on the same show all the time. And what that also allowed us to do is go to other venues with what we had sort of built in that, or grew in that incubator.
But it was awesome too, because it was we had the regular crowd coming, but we also had, like, Casey's is a renowned, like, USC downtown kind of college bar. So it's also filled with, like, the people who have zero fucking interest in our music at all, like, are there, like, playing ping pong and, like, broing out and watching, sports. And
I did notice that when I was there.
And doing their things. I mean, it was fairly frequent. You would have that crowd there too, and, like, maybe you get a couple to come in the room and check it out, and be like, oh, that's cool, that's cool.
It would be great.
I would say they were always positive to see, like they were open to the idea, whether or not it's their jam or not. We didn't have people, like, in our faces telling us to shut up so they can watch the Clippers.
It was some of the funnest things, like meeting people that just showed up there to catch the game. And they come back in that back room and see our show, and we ran into some very unlikely fans. The guys with the popped polo collars and the backwards hat, just sweat pouring down their faces because they just danced for the last hour nonstop. Like, bro, you guys are great. You guys are a great band. It's kind of weird. That was weird. Like, I didn't understand what that eyeball guy was all about, but it was pretty cool.
Yeah, that was always a fun part of Casey's too. It was fun. It was a great spot. They were gracious hosts. They put up with a lot of our shit, and so yeah, they definitely are on the fondness scale. I think the Satellite, deserves a nod as well. We got to do some really cool stuff there, and got to know some really amazing people there. Oh wow, my cricket went away. All right, bud. I guess it's, his break. But yeah, the Satellite I thought was cool too. It's definitely right in that zone of, like, it's got to be cool to be here, and we definitely had a rocky start there, I think. But eventually they were super pumped to have us and allowed us to do and take a bunch of big risks and do some crazy shows. So I think they deserve a nod too.
How is the I'm still, mainly because it's fresh in my mind, is the Dark City, because that was sort of that next development from the Woods.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I'm just imagining how what a pain in the ass it is to just the lounges, as far as this being a tight packed space and pulling off a show like that.
I can speak to that show in that regard, which is oftentimes the best laid plans are something because we had really cooked up a real incredible show, and the best thing in the world that could happen happened, which is there were so many people in there to see it that we didn't really even have room to do it. And
it was so freaking packed in there. Like, that room, you could feel the heat coming out of that room like 20 feet from the door. It was so amazing. Like, I was shitting a brick on how we were going to get that thing done, but we did. And it's like, so you've been to the Silver Lake Lounge. I don't know if you saw that show, but it's like, it feels like a bathroom. I think there's a girl's bathroom. I've never been in it. But, like, there's nowhere. There's nowhere to prep. There's nowhere to set up. Like, the only backstage is the hallway behind the stage to the bathrooms. The bathrooms don't lock. People, so you're, like, making a costume change, and there's, like, 3 dudes in there taking a piss, being like, hey, cool set, man. Yeah, I would have, I don't know if I would have done that. And you're like, yeah, thanks, bro. Like, getting ready for the next thing. Like, but that's one of the, again, those are the amazing shows too. When you look back, like, fuck, how cool was that? That place was so packed. Being on that stage looking out was like, you just saw a maw of humanity, and, like, they are just so ready for what's next. It was a cool show.
For that show, I don't know if you can see it in the video, but I'm kind of on the short side. So I knew that what I would need to do is bring, like, a milk crate so I could put it down and get up on it so that the people, just even like 3 people back, would even be able to see me.
Oh my God. I think. Did that show play in any other venues?
It did. Not that specific setup. Like I said, we would adapt and adjust. But the Dark City got played in a few different places. Elements of it were played often at Casey's during the residencies. We kind of added in pieces and workshopped things during the Dark Wood show. So we would have the Dark Wood show, and then we would add a couple of pieces to try out.
Yeah, and like that the Dark City was sort of the next environment after the Dark Woods, but that particular show was, if it were a book, that would have been a chapter of the book of the Dark City, and that show was called the Dark City Museum. And so there were more stories to tell in that world, and so what we would do is you take certain pieces, because sometimes the set list changes. You don't play the exact same set list in the same order, so you kind of cannibalize, like, oh, that really worked in that show, and you kind of piecemeal it back. You bust it apart and then put it back together again with new stuff and maybe even older stuff.
I want to pull it back into kind of what you're working on now, because we're talking such in a past tense, like there's a high, like the high water mark, but I know you guys are always still doing stuff, and you guys are working on a new. It sounds like it's an audiobook or a interactive sort of radio podcast experience.
Yeah, I don't know how much Steeler wants us to talk about it just yet.
Yeah, it's up to you.
But what I'd call it is kind of an audio movie. We're kind of exploring the world of the narrative style podcast, and it's a script that he has written very much with the band in mind, and so that's kind of the project that we've been creating in these particular times.
Yeah, right. And PLaNETS, while we talk about that was, we've been discussing specifically the PLaNETS live performances of the Dark Woods and the beginnings of the Dark City. That album still exists on a certain level, and like there's nothing to say that we wouldn't jump back on a stage if the right opportunity came along and it was we were able to do it. So yeah, PLaNETS is not, as a live band, is certainly not dead, I would say. At least not in my mind. Not that I speak for the whole band. But I don't see any reason why that can't be revisited and explored and new things brought out. But also, PLaNETS is doing other things. PLaNETS exists in these spaces of this new project we're working on. People can catch our YouTube live streams that we've done periodically throughout the pandemic. Some of it's old stuff, some of it's new stuff. So still supporting other artists. We did live streams from different bands and creating these sort of audioscapes for various other projects. I think is still very much part of what PLaNETS is. So new horizons, always constantly experimenting, and just because you can't go to Casey's and see us play on Saturday night doesn't mean we're not still fucking jamming. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think I think we all know that, especially in these sort of I'm not gonna say unprecedented times, but it's more of a cycle of events that require a lot of places we love to not exist anymore. And but a lot of them, there's a whole new, a lot from that, there's a lot of Phoenix style, some other place will show up and hopefully have that sort of same energy and youthfulness to the CBGBs or the Casey's or the what have that kind of incubator type scene, and even places that you can have I've always thought the show would go really well in the if PLaNETS did a whole thing and took over the entire bootleg.
Fuck yeah.
Theater.
We played the bootleg a few times, but like
Dark Museum, Dark City Museum would be great there.
We played it. We played like just the audio stage, but there's so much stage back behind there, for all the other shit going on and stuff. Oh yeah, the first time we played there, I poked around. I took I snuck back there. I was like, holy shit, this would be awesome, and definitely ideas were made.
It's got a Warhol factory to it,
Oh yeah. Oh my god, the kind of shit we could do. Like I was thinking we could could move the audience through there, like a moving show. And if we did the museum in there, you'd go and see the different freaks and like different shit would happen. Yeah, please. It would be awesome to do some cool shit like that.
I think it's still I have not heard it's closed yet, so we're hoping.
Yeah, I mean, they're all teetering, and anybody who hears this, like, if you got coins to spend, if you give a shit about live music, like, support these places in any way you can, because it's so important. And they may go by the wayside, new ones will come up, but there are certain venues in this town where it's like we can see what happens. And it's happening in every city in the country, where it's like the homogenization, the McDonald's and the Starbucks and the standard buildings go up. And like some of these places, if they go under, that building's gone. And you will miss the je ne sais quoi, the mystical space that was there. You can't get that back. So as much as, life is what it is, and we understand, like, it will be sad to see some of these places if they lose their leases and they end up going under. Yeah, not to end on a sour.
I feel like in certain cases it's sad that there's been a lot of shutters over the doors of a lot of places and venues and spaces in which this stuff happens. But I think if we want to try to be hopeful about it, I think once this thing cools off and calms down and we're able to go back out and go to venues and go see bands, I think coming out of this there's going to be so much enthusiasm about going back out and attending live. I think everything will bounce back. If nothing else, it's because people have been bottling up that desire and not getting. It's like vitamin D from the sun, there's a certain thing that you get filled with when you go to see a live show. And I think that the enthusiasm that will come when we're able to go back out to those venues, I think that we're going to see a lot of cool new stuff spring up, a lot of cool new venues. And I think we're going to see a lot of places that maybe aren't, that the windows are shuttered now, but I don't think those places are gone forever. And I think that's the hope there. And the cool part is that everybody right now is, I've said this word a lot tonight, incubating. So I think people are right now in the process of creating things that are going to blow our minds when we're able to go back out and see shows. And there's all kinds of new things. I just can't wait for it. I think it's going to be great.
Yeah, I'm pumped. I'm pumped to see a live show and see what the hell people have been doing with their lives for the past year. I bet it's going to be freaky as hell.
I'm going to say the most pretentious little anecdote that I can for the night. I'm leaning back, my shirt's wide open, and I've got my best Dr. Ian Malcolm lean going on, and I'd just say, art finds a way. Yeah, and please cut that out because...
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? That's near and dear to me because he was. I actually got to mix it. I did monitors for him once in Santa Barbara, which was a fun experience. My great grandmother used to feed him too.
I worked at this place called the Rockwell, and he had a show there, which was incredible. But one of my jobs was to get him something to eat, and one night I was like, what would you like for dinner? He goes, something green. And that's my terrible Jeff Goldblum impersonation that will be on the cutting room floor.
You guys do get Final Cut, by the way. Or not, you guys have anything you want cut, you can cut it. So I try to be accommodating.
I think we've actually this one's been pretty tame.
Yeah.
You've been a gracious host. You haven't asked us like really salacious questions.
Yeah, I was hoping there'd be
what was going on in the back of the van.
I was.
If you want, we can make some exclusive stuff so I can get paid. We can sort of paywall or something.
Yeah,
right. I think we should see how this one does, and if people weren't bored to fucking death listening to me and Nathaniel wax on about art and bullshit, we'll get them with the fans only side. Get that paywall going, and then we'll really talk about what went down.
I got plenty of people to talk to, man.
What we got to do is after all these years airing our grievances section, and that's for like the Patreon patrons, where it's like, something, that Alan Ty, I'll never work with that son of a bitch again because he's a cold-hearted bastard, and I hate his guts, and I'll never be caught dead on stage with that son of a bitch. And like everybody could do that, like. Yeah, because we were roommates and stuff. There's a lot of juicy stuff. Like
I'm sure.
there was a whole there was a whole fork gate with Adam Cotton and I, where I took all of his forks, which I was taking his forks because I lived in a van in the backyard, and I wouldn't want to like come back in the house after I had my food, so I just have a stockpile of forks eventually. And he was well within his rights to be irritated because every time he went to go eat, he wouldn't have a fork because I'd have them all. But then years later, there was this Thanksgiving gathering at Mel's house, and it turns out that Mel was also taking forks. So that's
right.
But this is the kind of content that goes right behind a paywall because this is too good.
Totally.
To just
that's just a taste.
Definitely won't be staying in here.
Yeah, you can't give this kind of stuff away.
No.
Yeah.
The infamous fork gate.
Yeah, this is...
What I do.
And the thing that he didn't say was they were his grandmother's forks. Like, they were family heirloom forks here, too, that were just being absconded with left and right.
I was at the time, I was fairly appalled. I thought we were supposed to be rock stars. Like, who cares about forks? Now I just realized that it was incredibly inconsiderate of me to be doing that to that man all the time. All the guy wanted to do is have some sketties. And
he gets into his sketties and he thinks about his old Nan, and what a great memories he had with him. But no, he has to use some fucking other.
Yeah, I'm going to do it. I'm going to use this platform, this unique opportunity, once and for all, and say, Adam Cotton, I'm sorry that I kept taking those forks, and I'm doubly sorry for having attitude about it when you gently asked me to bring them back. There. This last hour of conversation was worth this moment. I feel clean. I feel like, it's the beginning of a new year. We could start fresh.
That's fantastic. I think I'm not sure if we can top that.
Yeah, you can't. You don't have to live in the shadow of poor cutlery decisions that you've made in your youth. You can evolve. You can get bigger than all of it.
It's time to grow and heal, people, especially today. We'll start with the forks. We'll get to the bigger stuff later.
For sure. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Awesome.
But anyway, thank you so much for helping me out with all this.
Oh, absolutely.
This has been great.
Yeah, this is.
And we'll be in touch soon.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
Yeah. It's been good to air out that dirty.
That fork stuff is off my chest.
No, it's a pleasure.